我想要问一下，就是台湾对于推行 EAP 的时候，就是常常会被质疑那个成效的问题。那我想要请问一下说，在欧洲在 EAP 的成效评估上有没有什么样的做法，可以让企业比较是能够接受的？
So there's different ways to measure EAPs. There's different ways to measure effectiveness as well. One of the key things to find out is what does the client organization consider a success? Right? Because you can measure a lot of different things. But if the person at the end thinks that success is only one metric, that's the one that you need to focus on. So it can be utilization rate. Some people just want to see utilization rate. I personally don't like utilization rate because it doesn't tell you a reality. Utilization rate is number of cases opened divided by the head count. But that could have been one employee that opened 10 cases. So it's not 10% of your employees, right? So you have to look at it. Somebody from finance just wants to see the program is being used. Great. That's all they're happy about. But when we're measuring effectiveness, we have to look at, utilization rates. We have to look at what I would call a penetration or engagement rate. So how many people have used the service, right? And then also looking at outcomes, right? So not only, the success of the counseling sessions. So making sure that we're analyzing that information from the counselors, measuring it pre and post. So how was I before and how am I after?
这个前后测就是 WOS 吗？Workplace Outcome Suite.
Yeah, the Workplace Outcome Suite is exactly. I mean, I'm sure maybe you follow that procedure. If you're doing it, that's a perfect example of analyzing the outcomes, right? Other things that you can be looking at is reusing, how many people reuse the service as well, and looking to see, sometimes you can trend this type of information, are they reusing for the same issue? Or are they reusing for different issues? Because if they're reusing the service, one person used it 10 times, that's great. They use it 10 times for 10 different reasons. That means they understand what the program is for. I need help with different things. If they keep coming back for the same problem, the program is not for them. It's not the right tool for them. When analyzing, it depends on how much data you can collect, obviously, and it's connecting things together as well. You can use ROI calculators, return on investment calculators, but those are great if you're able to actually provide data around absenteeism rates, leaves, etc., so that you can see, are those numbers fluctuating? What type of leaves are people taking? Are they taking a lot of mental health leave? Once you've implemented the program, have you seen those go down? Have you seen any fluctuations? So there's a lot of different aspects. And there's providers out there that provide not just the calculators, but also the insights. So depending on what your needs are, it is something that is important to look at because or else it just becomes a checkbox, right? I have an EAP and I'm spending money, but I don't know if it's doing anything. And that's why people don't invest, because they don't know if it's going to do something. Another thing that is an area that's important to measure is actually the leadership team. So, because we're talking about end users, the employees, but obviously EAP is very important for managers, right? There's organizational services, consultations. Managers can provide feedback, right? Those key stakeholders can provide feedback. They can show, managers themselves can actually show, if they know that their team are using the service, etc., they can show, hey, our productivity has gone up. That's the other measure, is if you're noticing that your productivity is going up. Forget absenteeism, forget all of that. If your productivity is going up, that means your employees typically are healthy because they're able to produce more. An employee who is not doing well is going to produce less. Your accident rates. So we look at absenteeism, but what about, let's look at health and safety. Accident rates, injury rates, especially in the more manufacturing or construction environments. Mental health is completely tied to it. I remember having the CEO of a big construction company coming. We were doing presentations, and before I did the awareness presentation, what he said was, I want everyone here to understand something. This is very important. This service is very important because it goes back to health and safety, 100%. And what it is this. If you got bad news, if you received bad news last night or last week, and you're working and you're distracted because you're worrying about that news that you received, you might cause an accident. You might not be the person that was in the accident, but you could have a colleague of yours be injured. So you should be responsible enough to know to use this service. But this is also true if you know that a colleague of yours received bad news the week before. You should encourage that colleague to use, because you are responsible for his or her safety. And you know that if I'm worried about my child being on drugs and I'm driving a forklift, you should not be driving a forklift if that is a concern and it's distracting you. And if I know this, I should be responsible enough to tell you, use this service to get the help that you need, right? So it's also taking the message back and bringing it back to health and safety, and looking at those accident rates and finding the root causes of those accident rates. Was it because the employee was distracted, or was it because there was a mechanical fault? If the employee was distracted, then that's something we need to address.